Here's Golf to Go with Frank LaRosa.
You know, Gary Gerould is a local treasure who's called Sacramento his home for 50 plus years. He's affectionately known as G-Man, and he's famous as the Sacramento Kings broadcaster from day one. That's a staggering 36 years and almost 2,900 games called. But certainly there's more to Gary Gerould than just basketball. And he is one of the people who plays the game. And so we're very happy to have you. G-Man, welcome, and glad to have you here.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Frank. This
It's
is weird. We're talking, we're not on a golf course chatting.
Neither one of us has hit a bad shot.
Boom, baby.
Well, congratulations on year 36 and obviously on to 37 with the Kings. It's kind of a tough year, certainly with COVID and everything else and the team, but there's some young folks on that team that show some promise for the years to come.
Absolutely. And I think that's what, drives us and keeps us going. And yeah, it's frustrating when you don't get in the playoffs. It's been 15 years. We're out there in the desert and we're chasing mirages and one thing or another. You hope that somehow it gets in place and you can stay healthy. There were a lot of things that were really encouraging in this last season, but there were major disappointments as well. And some of them were real head scratchers. And you say, well, how does that happen? When a team looks like it's, turning a corner and it's starting to play better and they string together a series of wins and then you turn around and you lose 9 in a row. And it just, it's very, very puzzling. But that's the way professional sports go. And you just have to roll with it. The thing that made this year, you mentioned COVID, this was unlike any year that I've been involved in my 36 years with the Kings, because for the very first time, there was no travel. All games were done on a remote basis. We called every game from Golden One Center. All road games we called on the big screen. As a consequence of the COVID protocols, there was no face-to-face interaction. I have yet to meet face-to-face the new general manager of the Sacramento Kings.
Oh, wow.
I have yet to have an opportunity to talk face-to-face with some of the newest Kings players. And it just was from that standpoint alone. And when you're at the arena for home games, because of the tiers that they have that the NBA has set up in its structure to handle the COVID protocols, we're up at the plaza level. And the players, of course, are at the event level. And, you're 200 feet away. And you do a post-game interview or you do a pre-game interview with a coach or whatever. And they're 200 feet below you, but you can't be there and talk to them face to face. So it was really bizarre from that standpoint alone.
It's pretty amazing, in all the years that you've been in broadcasting, you've probably done everything, but this was a year you hadn't done any of this.
Yeah. And when you're doing radio and on a television feed on the big screen, and they're in a series of replays or whatever coming out of a timeout, and you're trying to figure out, okay, where's the ball on the floor? Did somebody come in? There were a lot of unique challenges that went along with it, and sometimes some frustration. I think that, by the end of the year that we got a pretty good grasp on how to do it, but it wasn't just us. I mean, it's every local broadcaster in the NBA this season. Yeah. So nobody was on site. It's just really, really strange.
Well, as I said, on to next year. You were born in Michigan and you kind of got your start in radio at an early age.
Yeah, I was a teenager. I was an only child. My father passed away when I was 12 years old. My mother was frequently ill, and there was a lot of different times when I was literally on my own. And there were times when my mom, if she had to be hospitalized or whatever, I would stay with our minister's family. I'd stay with neighbors, things like that. And one of the offshoots of that was that the local radio station was about a mile from my house. And I found that it became a sanctuary, a second home. And literally every day, after school, in the evenings, I would go to that radio station and I just, absorb small town radio and got to be very close friends with the DJs and the sports people and one thing or another. And they afforded me opportunities to have my own show as a teenager and different things like that. So the offshoot was that by the time I graduated from high school and I was thinking about going to college, I had a lot of fairly good practical knowledge and experience in small town radio.
Well, and obviously a series of really fortunate events got you here to Northern California. And what do you got? More than 60 years in broadcasting now? Is that the number?
Well, yeah, that would, yeah, I was working on a full-time basis during summers when I was in college. So, yeah, I'm looking at my 81st birthday next month. So, yeah, 60 plus years. My Lord, that's frightening.
Well, and along the way, you've announced NFL football, IndyCar racing, and you had a bout with sumo wrestling there as well, I understand.
Yeah, I have a little bit of everything. I mean, it really runs the gamut. If you go from sumo wrestling to the NFL, that doesn't leave too many other bases to be covered. But the late Frank Murray, he was, I say Frank Murray, I'm drawing a blank. The actor, he and I did sumo wrestling. We spent 10 days together in Japan, and it was really an intriguing and interesting experience. But there've been a lot of different, events over the years. The Jackie Stewart celebrity skeet shoot in Wales, water skiing at Thorpe Park in London, a lot of cycling things, the world finals and nationals, Olympic cycling, different things like that. So I've been blessed, Frank. I mean, some of the strange, extreme type sports that we've done, and then some of the hardcore sports, and it's just been a magical ride. And I'm totally blessed to have had those opportunities. And I've told the story many times. One of the things that I'm most appreciative and thankful for was that I was able to get in at a time before the networks were, when they really started thinking about money, because money was no object. And of course, there weren't the proliferation of cable networks and stations and stuff at that time. It was ABC, NBC, CBS, and there'd be a couple of independents in any market, and that was it. And so to be able to be in an era when, as I say, money was no object for the networks, it was totally extraordinary, and it was totally memorable. And it started, one of the first trips that I ever had was to a place called Cervinia in northern Italy at the base of the Matterhorn. And we were there to do bobsled, and we ended up getting snowed out. So we spent a week in that part of Europe, just taking in the sights and one thing or another, and trying to work around 5 feet of snow that was dumped on us in 48 hours or something like that. But you'd go to London to do events, and the driver in a Bentley would pick you up at Heathrow and take you to the hotel. And by contract, I could take my wife Marlene 3 times a year on international excursions, and everything was first class.
That's exciting.
And they would take us to our venue to work, and then they'd go back and pick up the wives and say, well, okay, where do you want to go today? And they go hotel hopping or castle hopping or whatever it was. It was just a magical time.
So we don't do that anymore. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. Things suddenly became a little more bottom line conscious.
You're certainly extremely well known for NBA basketball and auto racing, but before there was Indianapolis, there was local tracks. You kind of got your start around here.
Yeah, up in Chico, 100 miles north of Sacramento. I was doing news, sports, music. You did everything, again, in small town radio. But I had what they called a news cruiser, and it had capability of being able to go on the air and direct from I'd go to accidents, fires, one thing or another, and do reports. Well, Friday night was race night at the fairgrounds in Chico, and the modifieds or the sprint cars, whatever they were running, I'd go park in the infield, and every 20 minutes or so, I'd do an update on who won the trophy dash, who won heat number 1. We're looking forward to the main event. We're really excited tonight because so-and-so from Sacramento has brought his sprint car to the Butte County Fairgrounds here in Chico. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I loved it, and it helped kind of fill a play-by-play void at that time. And I just, it was just another way to, be close. And out of that came opportunities after I moved to Sacramento and became a track announcer and one thing or another, and really ended up getting a chance to do motorsports at virtually all types of motorsports and at the very elite level.
It's pretty exciting. Well, and you've had a friendship with Paul Newman. You've ridden in the pace car with Mario Andretti. You've shared laughs with Julia Roberts. Which person of all these distinguished folks that you've met along the way, who stands out as as really someone that you really enjoyed?
Well, Paul Newman is amazing. I mean, he was just his wicked sense of humor, and just the fact that you got to kind of rub shoulders and become a friend. And we got into a situation where every week, because he was involved in IndyCar racing as an owner, we would wager, and it was usually odds. What odds would I give him to take the field against his team? And I won an awful lot of the different times because it was just his team, and he got into give you a sense of his humor. He started paying off bets in foreign currency, and I mean I still to this day have a collection of different foreign currencies from countries all around the world. And Newman would go and get that type of currency and come and pay me off the next week when we go racing at a different venue. Great character, just a wonderful human being. I miss him. Dave Letterman became, he wasn't a close friend, but he was also, because of his love of motorsports, he was frequently around, and I was always a huge Dave Letterman fan. And so there have been a handful of people along the way that have made it very, very interesting and very special.
That's very cool. Okay, so obviously this is called People Who Play the Game. So let's talk a little bit about golf.
What game is that, Frank?
Well, the way we play it is not really a game, I guess, but we have fun. Where'd you get your start? Who introduced you to the game?
I kind of was self-introduced to it as a kid in Michigan. The greatest birthday present I probably ever received, my mother, again, she's a single parent and trying to bring me up, fighting her various illnesses. She managed to come up with enough dollars to buy me a very basic golf club set. I had a driver, a 3-wood, I had a putter, a 9-iron, a 7-iron, a 5-iron, and a 3-iron. And I would put those golf clubs, that bag, on my handlebars of my bike, and I would pedal my butt across town about 3.5 miles or so to a local golf course. And I played every chance that I had an opportunity to do that. I loved it. And I loved, learning about it. And I remember being, in terms of a student at the time, I never took lessons or anything, but I remember devouring a Sports Illustrated series with Ben Hogan, who really broke down the game. And I can still envision some of those graphics and how to tie your arms together like they're bonded by rubber bands or sleeves, and different things that Hogan, adhered to with his success. This is a long time ago, but that's how it all kind of began.
What do you think it is? Well, for you, we all have different reasons. What fascinates you about the game? What brings you back every time?
Well, you learn very quickly that it's such a difficult game, and no matter what level you play, if you're extremely good, you're always striving to be better. If you're extremely bad, you're still striving to be better. And every time you go out on the golf course, you say, okay, today I want to be consistent. I want to be able to do this, this, and this. I've never been a good golfer. I'm an adequate type of a golfer, as you well know. And you have your moments, and some days you score better than others, and some days you're plagued by double bogeys, and then other days you find some magic in your putter or whatever, and you chip close and you knock down some putts and you score fairly well. So it's that lure of wanting to be better and chasing the elusive dream. Yeah. I have so much respect for people who make their living playing golf. I cannot begin to comprehend how people have to be so mentally tough over every shot. And when you make a bad shot, to have the discipline to discard that thought and not let it creep into your thinking and influence your next shot. It's just amazing to me that, yes, there's magnificent money on the tour to be made for those who are really elite and very, very good. But to get there, and you look at all the young whippersnappers coming up, men, women, guys, gals, college teams, high school teams, whatever, they're long, they're limber, they got the whippy back, they can hit the ball forever. And it's amazing to me. It's just a fascinating game.
Yeah. What do you have any heroes of the game? I mean, or maybe even some stories you can tell about people you interviewed along the way?
Well, I don't know that I have heroes in the sense that, I was always engaged. I mean, Arnold Palmer's charisma and his magnetism was special. And yet there was the stoicism of a Nicklaus or a Hogan and some of those who carved out great careers. And then there was the effervescence of a Watson and his smile and Johnny Miller's success, different ones along the way. And I don't know if I call them heroes, but I certainly looked up to them and I just marveled at their capabilities. And now in today's games, you look at the different people and if it's a Jordan Spieth or if you're getting ready for the PGA this weekend, and if it's a DeChambeau and how he's kind of tipped the golf world sideways a little bit over the last 6 months and his approach to the game, and Cameron Champ, whose ability to drive the ball so long on a local, and I love watching the Champions Tour, and I love watching the success of a Kevin Sutherland and a Scott McCarron because they have ties to Sacramento. And so there are people that I enjoy watching, and it's now that I have a little bit more time, I find that I can watch a little more golf on television. And when I was involved in doing all the racing, and every weekend I was at a track somewhere, I didn't have the luxury of those opportunities. And so I'm enjoying that aspect of it now.
Who would, so if you had the opportunity that you'd only play one course for the rest of your life, what course would that be, do you think?
Oh my. Well, I mean, we're so fortunate in Northern California because there are so many great courses around.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think you almost always think about, Pebble Beach, Cypress Point, Spyglass, the amazing golf courses in the Carmel area. They're world class, and they draw people from all over the world. So there's a special allure there. But they're really difficult golf courses too.
Yes, indeed.
And that makes it really, really difficult. But then in other places in Northern California, Olympic Club in San Francisco, you've got Winchester in the foothills, you've got the Tahoe courses that are so amazing at Incline and down at South Shore, and you've got Silverado and you've got the country clubs around Sacramento and the great tracks. And we play on a regular basis at El Macero, and it just it's wonderful to have the opportunities. And I haven't played nearly the number of golf courses that you have in your job, but I envy you, and you've been so kind to drag me along at different times, and we get to play some of these amazing golf courses. But I don't know if people you might take it for granted, but there are so many great courses in Northern California. Yochadihi is another one that we just absolutely love. And it's so it's it's a wide spectrum, but anywhere you turn, there's a great challenge and a great course waiting.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We are used to what we have and don't realize how fortunate we really are.
Yeah.
Tell me, everybody gets to have their fantasy foursome. Who's going to be in your group when you tee it up?
Fantasy foursome. You know what just flashed in my mind? You asked me this question for a magazine article about 20 years ago.
Did I really?
Yes. And the only reason that I would remember that was because not too long ago, Marlene found it. She was going through some stuff and she said, "This is really a terrific article that Frank wrote about you." And so I sat down and read it. And that was one of the questions. And I think I remember saying at that time that Letterman, because I was just so intrigued by his humor. I have no idea if he even plays golf.
Right.
You mentioned Julia Roberts earlier. I am totally in love with her infectious laughter and her personality. And it was basically because I used to see her so frequently on Letterman's show. And that's probably why those were a couple that came to mind at that time. I don't remember who the third one was, but I'd probably say Frank LaRosa because he's my good buddy.
I would look forward to playing with all of you. So when all is said and done, how would you like Gary Gerould to be remembered?
From a golf standpoint, or from just, I don't know, Frank. It's, I really appreciate people. I try hard to relate to the people that I'm surrounded by. I'd like to be thought that, I was a very respectable broadcaster. I have passion for the broadcast business. That passion is still burns very brightly even after all of these years. And I don't know. I suppose, you just can say, well, that guy was the pro's pro. I mean, maybe that would be it. I don't know. It just I don't think in those terms, really.
I know you don't, and that's why I asked the question. Your humility is almost as big as your talent, and your talent is unmatched. And you are, as I've said, adored by all of your friends and listeners in Sacramento who've been with you all these years. And I just appreciate the fact that we've been friends for so long as well. And I just can't tell you what a thrill it's been to have you on People Who Play the Game. And I want to thank you for the time, and I want to thank you for being one of the people who play the game. And I look forward to teeing it up with you again soon.
Let's make it happen. Appreciate all of that. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks very much, G-Man.